Tom Richards sat alone at his kitchen table, staring at the hospital discharge papers in his trembling hands. Released a day early, a small blessing, he'd thought. The house felt too quiet. Upstairs, bed springs creaked faintly. He rose slowly, surgical incisions still tender, following the sound like a detective trailing breadcrumbs. The bedroom door stood slightly ajar, Claire's perfume mingling with an unfamiliar cologne. His wedding band caught the afternoon light as his hand pushed the door open. 40 years of trust shattered in an instant. Have you ever felt your world collapse in seconds? Share your story of betrayal below, like if Tom's pain resonates with you, and follow to witness how this 65-year-old man transforms heartbreak into calculated justice. Later, driving aimlessly through familiar streets, Tom's tears finally fell. But behind them, something hardened, a quiet resolve forming from the ashes of his marriage. Tom Richards stood motionless in the bedroom doorway, hospital bracelet still circling his wrist. The afternoon sunlight filtered through half-drawn curtains, casting a spotlight on the scene he never imagined witnessing. Claire scrambled for the sheet, her expression transforming from passion to horror in the span of a heartbeat. Beside her, a man Tom vaguely recognized fumbled for scattered clothing. 40 years of marriage. 3 weeks since his heart surgery. One moment to destroy it all. "Tom," Claire's voice cracked. "You weren't supposed to be home until tomorrow." Tom's voice emerged steady, betraying none of the earthquake beneath. "They discharged me early." His knuckles whitened against the doorframe, the only visible sign of his inner turmoil. A single tear tracked down his weathered cheek, quickly wiped away with the back of his hand. The third stair had creaked its familiar greeting as he'd climbed minutes earlier, hospital parking ticket still tucked in his pocket. He'd called Claire's name, met with silence save for the muffled sounds from upstairs. The unfamiliar sedan in the driveway should have prepared him. Nothing could have. "I'll give you 10 minutes to leave," Tom said, gaze fixed somewhere above their heads, where family photos hung on the opposite wall. Summer vacations, Christmas mornings, Jessica's graduation. Moments he'd thought were genuine. "Please, Tom, this isn't—" Claire reached toward him, her gold bracelet, his anniversary gift, catching the light. Tom raised his hand slightly, halting her words. He turned without another sound, descending the stairs methodically despite the surgical pain flaring in his chest. The grandfather clock in the hallway ticked away seconds of a life suddenly upended, its steady rhythm a mockery of his racing heart. "Tom, wait!" "It's not what you think!" Claire called desperately from the top of the stairs, hastily wrapped in their bedsheet, the Egyptian cotton ones she'd insisted on buying for their anniversary last year. He didn't respond. What could he possibly say? The gardenia perfume he'd bought her for Christmas now hung sickeningly sweet in the air, mingled with an unfamiliar cologne. Tom caught his reflection in the hallway mirror as he descended. Shoulders straight, face composed, only his eyes betraying the devastation within. His gaze lingered briefly on the handmade anniversary clock on the mantel, a gift from their 25th celebration. 15 more years of devotion after that. For what? His heart medication bottle sat on the side table where he'd left it this morning, expecting Claire to be waiting with a warm welcome when he returned. Instead, he'd become an intruder in his own home. Tom reached the front door, muscles tightening in his throat, but refusing to break. Behind him, Claire's pleas continued, her footsteps hurrying down the stairs. He stepped outside, closing the door behind him with a quiet click that somehow felt more devastating than a slam would have been. Only in the sanctuary of his car did Tom allow his composure to crack, a sob rising in his throat as he gripped the steering wheel. But even as the first tears fell, something else was forming beneath the pain. A quiet, calculated resolve. Tom drove aimlessly through familiar streets, his vision blurring as tears finally flowed freely. Without conscious decision, he found himself parking at Riverside Park, where 41 years earlier he'd knelt on one knee and asked Claire to share his life. The irony wasn't lost on him. He settled heavily onto the worn wooden bench, their initials, TR plus CM, still faintly visible in the corner, carved in a moment of youthful optimism. The pain medication was wearing off, his chest throbbing in rhythm with his broken heart. Somehow, the physical discomfort seemed appropriate. "All those years," he whispered to the empty air. Distant children's laughter drifted across the park as families headed home for dinner, their normalcy highlighting his sudden solitude. Cooling autumn air carried the scent of freshly cut grass and approaching rain, the seasonal shift mirroring his own abrupt life change. Fallen maple leaves crushed underfoot as an elderly couple walked past, hand in hand, the woman leaning slightly against her husband's shoulder. Tom looked away, unable to bear their contentment. His phone buzzed for the third time. Claire's name flashed on the screen, a tear falling onto the glass before he wiped it away with his sleeve. His thumb hovered over the delete button before he simply returned the phone to his pocket, unanswered. With deliberate movements, Tom removed his wedding ring, turning it in the fading light to read the inscription inside, "Forever yours, C." The gold band caught the sunset's glow. 40 years of marriage reduced to a small circle in his palm. He couldn't bring himself to throw it away. Not yet. So he tucked it into his pocket, the weight of it pressed against his thigh like a small, accusing stone. Tom opened his wallet, extracting the worn photo of Claire he'd carried since their honeymoon. Her younger self smiled up at him, dark hair blowing in a Mediterranean breeze, eyes squinting against sunlight. A tear splashed onto the plastic sleeve, smudging her face. He wiped it carefully with the handkerchief embroidered with his initials, last Christmas's gift from Claire, then sat straighter, gathering his composure with visible effort. The distant church bells chimed 6 o'clock, the same bells that had rung after their wedding ceremony. Tom pulled out his phone again, scrolling past Claire's missed calls to find another name. "Daniel Feinstein," he said, voice steadying with each word as purpose began replacing shock. "It's Tom. Tom, good to hear from you. How's the recovery going?" The familiar voice of his longtime friend and attorney brought momentary comfort. "I need your help, Daniel." Tom's voice dropped to a whisper on the final words. "It's over, Claire." A pause, then, "I was wondering when this day would come." Tom's breath caught. "You knew?" "Suspected, never certain." Daniel's tone turned professional. "Where are you staying tonight?" "I hadn't thought that far ahead." "The Parkview Hotel on Maple Street. Tell them you're my guest. We'll meet first thing tomorrow." Tom nodded, though Daniel couldn't see him. "Thank you." As he ended the call, Tom gazed once more at the elderly couple, now seated on a distant bench, sharing what appeared to be a thermos of coffee. His expression shifted from pain to resolve, shoulders straightening as he stood. If others had suspected Claire's infidelity while he remained oblivious, what else had he missed? The first heavy raindrop struck his cheek, indistinguishable from his tears. But as he walked to his car, his steps grew steadier, a plan already forming in his mind. The Parkview hotel room was modest but clean, worlds away from the home Tom had left behind. He placed his small overnight bag on the neatly made bed, its tight hospital corners reflecting an order his life no longer possessed. The generic beige walls and mass-produced artwork offered nothing of the personality that had filled his house, their house, for 40 years. Tom avoided his reflection in the mirror above the dresser. He wasn't ready to face the man who had been so thoroughly deceived. Sitting at the small desk, He felt his hands steadying as purpose replaced shock. The financial advisor who had guided countless clients through critical decisions was taking control of his own crisis. Tom reached for the hotel phone, his voice carrying the quiet authority of his professional years as he called his bank. "This is Thomas Richards. I need to place an immediate freeze on all joint accounts under my name and Claire Richards." The customer service representative asked security questions, which Tom answered with practiced precision. "May I ask the reason for the freeze, Mr. Richards?" "Suspected fraudulent activity," he replied, the words tasting bitter, but not entirely untrue. With the accounts secured, Tom opened his laptop, the blue light harsh in the otherwise dimly lit room. He typed, "Divorce attorneys specializing in infidelity," into the search bar, methodically making notes on legal pad in his precise handwriting. Outside the thin curtains, city lights twinkled, life continuing for others, while his had come to a standstill. His phone buzzed repeatedly on the desk. Each text from Claire grew more desperate than the last. "Tom, please come home so we can talk. It's not what you think. Where are you staying? I'm worried about your heart. Please don't do anything rash." After reading several messages, Tom silenced the device completely, sliding it into the desk drawer. The antiseptic scent of the recently cleaned bathroom drifted through the room, sterile like his new reality. From his overnight bag, Tom retrieved a folder containing documents from his safety deposit box, insurance policies, property deeds, and the prenuptial agreement Claire had reluctantly signed before their wedding. His fingers traced the signature date, remembering her objections. "It's so unromantic, Tom," she had said. "Don't you trust me?" He had insisted, citing his responsibility to his parents' estate and his future financial advisory practice. Now, 40 years later, that caution was his only protection. Tom created a comprehensive list of shared assets and accounts, his financial expertise evident in the detailed categorizations. Retirement accounts, investment properties, art collections acquired over decades, the beach house in Florida, the cabin in Vermont, a lifetime built together, now to be dismantled. The faint voices and footsteps from adjacent rooms emphasized his isolation. Tom found himself listening to a couple's muffled laughter through the wall, their happiness a stark contrast to his solitude. From his wallet, Tom removed the wedding photo he'd carried for decades, Claire in white, looking up at him with what he'd always believed was adoration. He studied it one last time before placing it face down in the desk drawer, lingering on the image momentarily before closing it with quiet finality. "How do I tell you, sweetheart?" Tom whispered, holding their last Christmas card photo, a tear falling onto Jessica's smiling face. Their daughter stood between them, unaware of the fault lines beneath the family portrait. Would she believe him, or would she take her mother's side? A text tone different from Claire's custom sound interrupted his thoughts. Tom retrieved the phone, finding a message from an unknown number. "You deserve to know everything about Claire and Michael. Meet me tomorrow, 2 p.m., Riverside Cafe." Tom stared at the screen, a new sense of purpose forming. Someone else knew. Someone was willing to talk. And suddenly, the path forward became clearer. The law office of Daniel Feinstein occupied the third floor of a renovated Victorian in the city's professional district. Tom arrived precisely at 9, a folder of financial documents and timeline tucked under his arm. Despite a nearly sleepless night, he had shaved carefully and dressed in a pressed shirt and slacks, refusing to appear diminished by circumstances. "You look better than I expected," Daniel said, rising from behind his desk to greet Tom with a firm handshake that transitioned into a brief embrace. The leather chairs, worn comfortable by decades of clients seeking justice, creaked as they both sat. Morning light filtered through Venetian blinds, casting prison bar patterns across the documents Tom methodically arranged on the desk. On the walls, Certificates and law books signified expertise and authority. A pendulum clock marked time with gravitas, its steady rhythm somehow reassuring. I brought everything I could think of, Tom said, opening the folder. Financial statements, property deeds, prenuptial agreement, insurance policies. Daniel nodded approvingly. That's the financial advisor I know. Most clients come in empty-handed, overwhelmed. I'm still overwhelmed, Tom admitted. Just not showing it. Tell me exactly what happened yesterday. Tom recounted the discovery in measured tones, his account precise despite the emotional weight. When he finished, Daniel leaned back, steepling his fingers. The man with Claire, you recognized him? Vaguely. I believe his name is Michael Peterson, department chair at the university. Daniel's expression shifted subtly. Michael Peterson. I was afraid of that. You know him? By reputation. Daniel opened his laptop. He's had similar situations before. A quick search confirmed Tom's recollection. Michael Peterson, 54, chaired the university's finance department. A photograph showed a distinguished-looking man with salt and pepper hair and wire-rimmed glasses, standing at a podium during a lecture. I'd like to hire a private investigator, Tom said. I need to know how long this has been going on. Daniel made a call, speaking in professional shorthand to someone named Martinez. When he hung up, he turned back to Tom. James will start today. He's discreet and thorough. They reviewed legal options for the next hour, Tom asking incisive questions that reflected his financial acumen. The divorce laws in their state, division of assets, the strength of the prenuptial agreement after 40 years. Given Claire's infidelity and your health condition, we're in a strong position, Daniel explained. But we need documentation, photos, text messages, witness statements. I received this last night, Tom said, showing Daniel the text from the unknown number. Daniel raised an eyebrow. Riverside Cafe at 2. Interesting. I suggest you go, but be cautious. It could be someone with genuine information or Claire trying to manipulate me, Tom finished. Exactly. Daniel made a note. Now, practical matters. Have you secured your property? Personal items, important documents? The documents are here or in my safety deposit box. But my clothes? My father's watch collection? I recommend changing the locks. I can arrange a locksmith for this afternoon when Claire is likely to be at work. Tom nodded. And the car she drives? It's in my name only. We can arrange repossession, though that escalates things significantly. Good. Tom's voice hardened. I want it escalated. Their strategy session was interrupted by Tom's phone. Jessica's name appeared on the screen. Tom flinched visibly, shoulders tensing before answering. Jessica. Hi, sweetheart. He moved to the corner of the office for privacy. Dad? What the hell is going on? Mom called me hysterical last night saying you walked out on her. His daughter's voice carried clearly through the phone. Jessica, I wish I could tell you it wasn't true. Tom's voice broke slightly as he turned away from Daniel to hide his emotion. She said you just left without explanation. She's worried sick about your heart. Did she mention that I found her in our bed with another man? Silence. Then, that's not... Mom wouldn't... I was discharged early. Came home to surprise her. No, there must be some misunderstanding. The only misunderstanding was my belief in our marriage. Tom struggled to keep his tone gentle. I know this is difficult to hear. You're lying. Jessica's voice hardened. Mom said you've been different since the surgery, paranoid from the medications. Jessica. No, I can't believe you'd make up something so horrible about Mom. I have to go. The call ended. Tom stood motionless, phone still pressed to his ear, before slowly returning to his seat. That went poorly, he said quietly. Daniel squeezed Tom's shoulder, his expression shifting from professional to compassionate. She'll come around when she learns the truth. Children always want to believe the best of their parents. As they resumed their discussion, James Martinez, the private investigator, arrived with preliminary information. Michael Peterson had a history of relationships with faculty spouses. 2 previous affairs had ended marriages in the university community. Tom's hands tightened on the edges of the report as he read. "So, I'm not the first." "Apparently not," Daniel said. "And Claire may not be special to him, just convenient." Tom's expression hardened as realization dawned. "The University Endowment Committee. I've been consulting on their investment strategy. Claire knew all about it." "Peterson chairs that committee," Daniel confirmed after a quick search. "This may not be just about an affair." As Tom left Daniel's office, his steps were purposeful. The vehicle repossession was scheduled. The locksmith would arrive at 2:30. The bank accounts remained frozen. And at 2 o'clock, he would meet his mysterious informant. For the first time since discovering Claire's betrayal, Tom felt a sense of control returning. His professional expertise and life experience, perceived vulnerabilities of aging, were becoming his greatest assets. The calm, strategic thinking that came with decades of practice allowed him to plan methodically rather than react emotionally. The game had changed. Claire had betrayed not just his heart, but his expertise, and that Tom could not forgive. The hotel room had transformed into an investigation headquarters overnight. Tom had pushed the small desk against the window, spreading documents across the surface in color-coded folders. His laptop glowed in the dim light, the curtains drawn against the outside world. Coffee cups accumulated as hours passed, the room service tray with barely touched food, evidence of his absorption in the task. The private investigator's report lay open before him, more comprehensive than Tom had expected in such a short time. James Martinez was thorough. He'd give him that. The timeline of Claire's affair stretched back at least 6 months, documented through credit card receipts for hotel rooms, restaurant bills for 2 at intimate locations where Tom had never been, and, most damning of all, photographs. Tom's finger traced Claire's image in one picture, her face alight with laughter as she and Michael Peterson entered a hotel. The timestamp showed a Wednesday afternoon when she'd told Tom she was attending a school board meeting. His face hardened as he slid the photo into an evidence folder. 6 months, he murmured. During his pre-surgery consultations, through his recovery, while he'd been focusing on his health, she'd been building another life. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Opening it, he found Linda Martinez, Claire's longtime friend and, coincidentally, the wife of his private investigator, though Tom doubted Claire knew of that connection. "Tom, may I speak with you?" Her expression was tense, uncomfortable. He stepped aside, allowing her into the room. Linda glanced at the investigation board he'd created, wincing slightly. "I imagine you're here on Claire's behalf," Tom said, voice carefully neutral. Linda rearranged items on the table nervously. "She asked me to reason with you. She says you've misunderstood the situation." "Misunderstood?" Tom's voice remained quiet, but with a dangerous edge. "I found them in our bed, Linda. How many interpretations are there for that?" "She says it was a one-time mistake, that she loves you." Tom silently opened a folder, removing a selection of photographs and receipts. Linda's expression shifted as she reviewed them, her loyalty visibly wavering. "How long have you known, Linda?" His eyes never left her face. She couldn't meet his gaze. "I suspected. She's been different, secretive, making excuses to miss our usual lunch dates. But you didn't think I deserved to know. It wasn't my place. She's my wife of 40 years. The words burned in his throat. Linda's composure cracked. "I told her she was making a terrible mistake. I did, Tom. But she wouldn't listen. Said she needed excitement. That you were too predictable." The word struck like a physical blow. Predictable. Reliable. trustworthy. The qualities he'd prided himself on reduced to flaws. After Linda left, promising to keep their conversation confidential, Tom returned to the financial records. His expertise quickly spotted patterns he'd overlooked: small withdrawals from their joint account, always under $500, the threshold that would have triggered his attention. Over 6 months, nearly $12,000 had disappeared. The bank records revealed more. Claire had attempted to open a separate account in her name only, using their joint funds as initial deposit. The attempt had been flagged because the account required his signature as joint owner. As Tom connected these financial dots, a more disturbing pattern emerged. The timeline of Claire's affair corresponded precisely with his appointment to the university's endowment committee. The first hotel receipt dated from the week after his role was announced in the university newsletter. Tom's phone chimed with an alert. Claire had attempted a large withdrawal from their joint checking account, only to discover it frozen. His protective measures were working. He reached for his heart medication, a sudden pain flaring in his chest. The stress was taking its toll, despite his outward calm. As Tom swallowed the pill, his hand shook slightly, a reminder of his physical vulnerability. Returning to his laptop, Tom searched for information about Michael Peterson. The university website listed his academic credentials, publications, and committee responsibilities, including chair of the endowment committee Tom had been advising. Further searching revealed Peterson had been passed over for promotion twice, with financial mismanagement concerns mentioned in a faculty newsletter. The picture was becoming clearer. Peterson hadn't seduced Claire for her charm alone. He'd targeted her to access Tom's financial expertise and university connections. Tom sat heavily on the bed's edge, head in hands. It wasn't just infidelity, it was calculated exploitation. Decades of trust had been weaponized against him. His shoulders shook with silent sobs as the full magnitude of the betrayal washed over him. Rising unsteadily, Tom made his way to the bathroom, gripping the sink as another wave of pain passed through his chest. The face that looked back from the mirror was pale, eyes red-rimmed. He splashed cold water on his face, the action grounding him. Opening his wallet, Tom examined their wedding photo. Claire in white, himself younger and beaming with pride. Had any moment been genuine, or had he spent 40 years loving a performance? His phone buzzed with another text from Jessica. "Dad, Mom's frantic because she can't access any money. She says you're trying to financially abuse her. Please stop this craziness and come home." Tom closed his eyes, the secondary pain of his daughter's misplaced loyalty cutting deep. Before he could respond, another alert appeared. Claire had attempted to use their joint credit card, likely discovering it was also frozen. Has betrayal ever left you breathless? Comment if you've felt that crushing weight of deception from someone you trusted completely. Like if you're standing with Tom in this fight, and follow to witness his masterfully calculated response that will leave Claire wishing she'd never betrayed him. Tom returned to the desk, a new resolve hardening within him. If Claire and Peterson wanted to play games with his life, his health, his expertise, they would soon discover they were facing a master strategist. His age and experience weren't weaknesses to be exploited, but strengths they had fatally underestimated. He picked up his phone and called Daniel. "I need everything you can find on Michael Peterson's financial history, and I want to move forward with the divorce filing immediately." The envelope arrived at Tom's hotel room, bearing the letterhead of Greenfield Associates, Claire's hastily retained legal counsel. Tom's hands crumpled the paper slightly as he read the threatening language accusing him of abandonment, financial abuse, and emotional distress caused by unfounded accusations of infidelity. The letter demanded immediate restoration of Claire's access to all financial accounts and property, threatening emergency court action if he failed to comply within 48 hours. Tom sat on the bed's edge, head momentarily in his hands, shoulders slumped under the weight of this new attack. After several deep breaths, he straightened, smoothing the letter on the desk and adding it to his growing evidence file. The hotel phone rang, the front desk informing him his card had been declined for the upcoming week's extension. Claire must have reported their joint credit cards stolen. "I understand," Tom said calmly. "I'll be checking out this afternoon." This complication forced Tom's hand sooner than he'd planned. His accessible funds were limited with the accounts frozen, a protective measure that now cut both ways. After several calls, he secured a room at the Wayside Motel on the edge of town, a stark downgrade from the Parkview's modest comfort. The motel room made the hotel seem luxurious by comparison. Thin walls allowed neighboring arguments to filter through like unwanted companions. A flickering fluorescent light cast a sickly glow in the bathroom. The single bed with its sagging mattress served as a visible reminder of his downward mobility. A coffee stain on the carpet documented the room's history of transient occupants. The musty scent of decades of previous guests hung in the air, mingling with cheap disinfectant. Rain pattered against the window like teardrops, nature reflecting his emotional state. Tom methodically unpacked his few possessions, organizing them with the same precision he'd applied throughout his career. "Control what you can," his father had always said. His phone rang. Dr. Stevens, concerned about missed follow-up appointment. "Blood pressure readings?" the doctor asked after Tom explained he'd been temporarily displaced due to family issues. Tom reported the numbers from his morning check, significantly elevated from his previous visit. "I need to see you today, Tom. This level of stress so soon after surgery puts you at serious risk for complications." At the clinic, Dr. Stevens's concerned expression said everything the blood pressure cuff confirmed. "Your heart needs less stress, not more legal battles," he advised, adjusting Tom's medication dosage. "Is there any way to postpone these family issues?" "Unfortunately not," Tom replied. The betrayal couldn't be unpacked on schedule like a recently discharged patient's recovery. Back at the motel, Tom called Daniel with the doctor's concerns and Claire's legal threats. "We expected this," Daniel reassured him, "but I have something that might improve your spirits." "The University Ethics Committee is very interested in our information about Professor Peterson." Daniel explained that his contacts had uncovered documentation showing Peterson's pattern of inappropriate relationships extended beyond faculty spouses to include financial improprieties. The University Endowment Committee's records revealed several questionable investment recommendations from Peterson that would have benefited companies where he held personal interests, recommendations that Tom, as consultant, had advised against. "They're launching a formal investigation," Daniel concluded. "This goes beyond your divorce case, Tom. Peterson may have been using Claire to influence your recommendations or gain insider information." For the first time in days, Tom felt a glimmer of vindication. He wasn't the only one questioning Peterson's character. As he organized evidence folders with methodical precision despite his surroundings, controlling what he could, Tom's cell phone rang with an unexpected name, Linda Martinez. "Tom, I need to see you," she said, voice low, as if afraid of being overheard. "There's more you should know." They met at a quiet coffee shop across town. Linda appeared nervous, rearranging sugar packets as she spoke. "Claire came to me after you left. She was frantic about the accounts being frozen." Linda hesitated. "She said things I can't ignore anymore." "What kind of things?" "She admitted the affair has been going on for months. But worse." Linda leaned closer. "She told me she was planning to divorce you anyway, after your recovery, said she'd put in her time and deserved half of everything." Tom's expression remained impassive, though the revelation cut deep. "Michael convinced her to wait until after some university endowment decisions were finalized," Linda continued. "Something about investment strategies you were advising on." The pieces aligned perfectly with Tom's discoveries. Claire's betrayal was even more calculated than he'd initially thought. Not an impulsive affair, but a strategic exit planned to maximize her financial gain while helping Peterson's professional schemes. "Why are you telling me this?" Tom asked quietly. Linda met his eyes directly for the first time. "Because it's wrong. Because 40 years should mean something. Because you were always kind to James and me, even when Claire made those condescending remarks about his little detective agency." After finalizing a comprehensive divorce filing with Daniel that afternoon, evidence of infidelity and financial misconduct meticulously documented, Tom returned to the motel to find his phone blinking with a voicemail. "Dad?" Jessica's voice sounded less certain than in her previous calls. "I found something strange in Mom's desk. She doesn't know I was there. Can we talk?" "Not about taking sides, just I have questions." Tom sank onto the bed, emotion welling in his throat. A potential ally where he'd expected only opposition. He returned the call immediately, Jessica answering on the first ring. "I can meet you tomorrow," she said tentatively. "Coffee at Hanson's? 9 o'clock? "I'll be there," Tom promised, his eyes lighting up for the first time in days. That evening, Tom washed his one dress shirt in the motel sink, methodically pressing it with a travel iron. Tomorrow would bring his first meeting with Jessica, the University Ethics Committee's initial investigation findings, and the filing of his divorce petition. He would face these challenges looking dignified despite his reduced circumstances, refusing to surrender his self-respect. As rain continued its steady rhythm against the window, Tom looked around the sparse motel room, comparing it mentally to the home of 40 years. For a moment, he questioned whether the fight was worth it. The stress on his health, the temporary homelessness, the fractured relationship with Jessica. Then his gaze fell on Claire's threatening legal letter, and his jaw set with renewed determination. A single tear tracked down his cheek, but its meaning had changed. This wasn't the tear of a victim, but of a strategist preparing for battle. The tide was turning. Linda had switched sides. Jessica was asking questions. The university was investigating. Each element of Tom's careful response was falling into place, proving that patience and wisdom were formidable weapons when wielded with precision. The morning sunlight cast long shadows across the courthouse steps as Tom straightened his tie with newfound confidence. The imposing stone edifice represented not intimidation, but opportunity. The justice system's authority now aligned with his cause. Other couples entered for similar proceedings, their varied emotions visible on faces that told stories of endings and beginnings. "Ready?" Daniel asked, briefcase in hand. Tom nodded, feeling younger and stronger than he had in days. More than ready. Inside, they met with the court clerk to file the comprehensive divorce petition Daniel had prepared. Tom's hands steadied as he handled the legal documents, a noticeable evolution from the trembling that had plagued him since the discovery. With each signature, power shifted back into his control. "Given the evidence of infidelity and financial misconduct," Daniel explained, "we're requesting an expedited hearing and temporary orders protecting the remaining assets." The clerk processed the papers efficiently, confirming receipt with an official stamp. Tom and Daniel shared a knowing look, the first battle won in a campaign meticulously planned. "Claire will be served this afternoon," Daniel said as they descended the courthouse steps. "I've arranged for delivery at her workplace rather than at home." "Good," Tom replied. The strategic timing would maximize impact, preventing Claire from controlling the narrative among her colleagues. Tom checked his watch, his father's timepiece, one of the few treasured possessions he'd secured before changing the locks. "I need to meet Jessica at 9. Hanson's coffee shop occupied a quiet corner downtown, its warm atmosphere a stark contrast to the clinical proceedings they'd just completed. Tom arrived early, selecting a table that offered privacy while allowing him to watch the door. Jessica entered precisely at 9, her nurse's punctuality evident. She hesitated upon seeing Tom, uncertainty flickering across features that mirrored Claire's beauty but carried Tom's thoughtful expression. When she approached, Her greeting was stiff, professional.
"You look tired, Dad." "It's been a difficult week," he acknowledged. An awkward silence stretched between them until Jessica reached into her bag, withdrawing a folded paper. "I found this in Mom's desk when I was looking for stamps." She slid it across the table. "It's a lease agreement for an apartment dated 3 months ago in her name only. The start date is next month." Tom examined the document, unsurprised but appreciative of concrete evidence. "Thank you for showing me this. Why would she need an apartment?" Jessica's voice carried a childlike vulnerability beneath the adult question. "Because she was planning to leave after my recovery," Tom answered gently. "This confirms what I've learned from other sources." Jessica's composure wavered. "She told me you were paranoid, making wild accusations because of your medication." A tear threatened at the corner of her eye. "I believed her." Tom reached across the table, his hand stopping short of touching hers, offering connection without pressure. After a moment, Jessica bridged the gap, gripping his fingers. "I found other things too. Bank statements for an account I didn't know about. Emails to a university professor." "Michael Peterson," Tom supplied. Jessica nodded. "I feel so stupid." "Don't. She's your mother. You wanted to believe the best of her." The conversation that followed brought tentative reconciliation, beginning with an awkward hug that melted into something more genuine. Tom explained his strategic response without vindictiveness, focusing on protection rather than punishment. "It's not revenge, Jessica. It's consequences," he explained, voice calm as he outlined the systematic exposure of the affair. "Claire and Michael made calculated decisions to betray not just our marriage, but my professional reputation and the university's finances, standing at the crossroads of heartbreak and justice. Like if you believe karma comes to those who deserve it, comment your own story of triumph over betrayal and follow now to witness Claire's carefully constructed world crumble as Tom's master plan unfolds. Will she finally face the consequences of her actions?" As they parted, Jessica promised to retrieve some family photos and personal items from the house. "She doesn't deserve to control your memories," she said firmly. Back at Daniel's office, Tom received confirmation that Claire had been served divorce papers at precisely 1:15 p.m. during the weekly administrative staff meeting. The process server reported her visible shock as colleagues looked on, her attempts to maintain composure crumbling as she read the detailed allegations. "The university president's office called," Daniel reported. "They've requested a confidential meeting regarding Peterson's activities. Apparently, our evidence corroborates concerns their audit department had already flagged." Tom nodded, the pieces falling into place. "And the exposure to Claire's family?" "The selected evidence was delivered to her sister and parents this morning as instructed." Daniel's expression showed professional approval of Tom's strategic thinking. "Limited to the affair documentation only, nothing financial or related to Jessica." "Perfect." Tom reviewed the timeline of actions taken, each methodical step demonstrating the power of experience over impulsiveness. This measured approach would have been beyond his younger self, who might have responded with emotional confrontation rather than strategic justice. As he left Daniel's office, Tom's phone signaled an incoming email, confirmation from the University Ethics Committee that a formal investigation into Michael Peterson had been initiated. The subject line read, "Confidential, Investigation of Conflicts of Interest, Endowment Committee." For the first time since discovering Claire's betrayal, Tom felt the weight on his chest lighten slightly. The justice he sought was taking shape not through emotional outbursts, but through careful application of evidence and expertise. The strategic patience cultivated over decades was being rewarded. Claire and Michael had underestimated him, seeing his age and recent health struggles as vulnerabilities rather than recognizing the formidable opponent created by 65 years of accumulated wisdom. Tom stood taller as he walked to his car, reviewing the day's accomplishments.
The divorce petition filed. Jessica beginning to see the truth. Claire served publicly. The university investigation launched. The email from the process server arrived as he reached his car. Service completed. Subject visibly distressed. Requested immediate phone contact with you. Tom smiled slightly, starting the engine. Let her call. He had nothing to say that his actions hadn't already expressed more eloquently than words ever could. The cafe where Tom met Jessica 2 days later offered neutral territory, a quiet corner table providing privacy for their second conversation. Afternoon sunlight through wide windows illuminated his daughter's face, revealing the emotional toll of recent revelations. The aroma of fresh coffee mingled with baked bread, while other diners engaged in ordinary conversations, highlighting how life-altering moments occur amid everyday normalcy. Jessica arrived carrying a cardboard box, setting it carefully on the empty chair beside her. Family photos, your coin collection, Grandpa's pocket watch collection, she explained. I took them when Mom was at her lawyer's office. Thank you. Tom's voice caught slightly. There's more at the house, but these seemed most important. Jessica fidgeted with her coffee cup, leaving her sandwich untouched. Mom's furious about the accounts being frozen, and something about the car being repossessed. The Lexus is in my name only, Tom explained. It was never a joint asset. Jessica nodded slowly. She keeps telling people you've had some kind of breakdown, that your heart medication is making you paranoid. Her expression hardened. But I found more emails, the apartment lease, bank statements. A familiar song played softly overhead, Claire and Tom's wedding song, the irony not lost on either of them. Jessica winced as she recognized it. The university called Mom yesterday, she continued. Something about an ethics investigation involving Professor Peterson. She was hysterical afterward. The ethics committee found evidence of inappropriate financial recommendations, Tom explained. Peterson was using his position to benefit companies where he held interests. And he was using Mom to get to you. Jessica's voice hardened. To influence your advice on the endowment investments. Tom nodded. According to Linda, that was part of the plan. Jessica impulsively reached across the table, hugging Tom fiercely. He froze momentarily before embracing her, allowing tears to fall freely for the first time as he held his daughter. The barrier of composure he'd maintained finally breaking in this moment of connection. Dad, I'm so sorry I didn't believe you. Jessica's voice was thick with emotion. Tom shook his head in forgiveness. You couldn't have known. As they separated, both with tear-streaked faces, Jessica reached into the box. I thought you might want this. She handed him a framed photo of Tom holding newborn Jessica, his expression one of wonder and love. I remember this moment, he said softly, tracing the frame's edge. You were so small. They spent the next hour looking through family photos together. Some Tom turned face down, tainted by fresh knowledge of Claire's deception. Others he cherished anew, particularly those featuring Jessica's milestones. What happens now? Jessica asked. The divorce proceeds. The university investigation continues. Tom's voice grew stronger. And I rebuild. Later that afternoon, Tom received an email from the university president confirming the ethics committee's findings. Michael Peterson had been placed on administrative leave pending termination proceedings. The investigation had uncovered a pattern of inappropriate relationships with university donors' spouses and questionable financial activities, spanning several years. Claire's workplace, the private school where she served as administrator, had received selected evidence of her misconduct involving university funds. The board chairman's terse email to Tom expressed regret for the situation and confirmed Claire had been placed on paid leave while they conducted their own investigation. Tom's lawyer called with news that Claire's family had confronted her after receiving documentation of the affair. According to Daniel's sources, Her sister had been particularly vocal, having experienced betrayal in her own marriage years earlier. "The social consequences are mounting," Daniel reported. "Several couples have canceled dinner plans with Claire. Her bridge club has apparently asked her to take a break from attending." That afternoon, Tom briefly returned to their home to collect additional belongings, using his new key for the first time since changing the locks. The house felt simultaneously familiar and foreign, filled with memories now called into question. He moved efficiently through rooms that had witnessed 40 years of marriage, selecting items with meaning, his books, remaining clothing, family heirlooms from his parents. In the bedroom, the scene of discovery, Tom paused, emotion washing over him. He sat heavily on his side of the bed, running his hand over the quilt his mother had made for their wedding. After a moment, he folded it carefully and added it to his collection. As he prepared to leave, Tom noticed Claire had rearranged things, removing many photos that included him. The erasure was already beginning on her side as well. His phone buzzed with a voicemail notification. Claire's voice, sounding more desperate than he'd ever heard. "Tom, please call me. This has gone too far. I'm willing to offer a significant settlement if you'll stop these exposures. My reputation is being destroyed. Just tell me what you want." The message revealed her true concern. Not reconciliation, but reputation. Not love, but damage control. Tom slipped the phone back into his pocket without responding. The final divorce hearing had been scheduled for the following week, the judge sympathetic to expediting proceedings given the evidence presented. As he drove away from the house, Tom felt both loss and liberation. The home that had been his sanctuary for decades now stood as a monument to deception. Yet with each systematic exposure of Claire's betrayal, with each consequence unfolding, the weight on his chest lightened slightly. Jessica's reconciliation had provided the emotional anchor he needed. While Claire and Michael faced professional and social ostracism, Tom found himself surrounded by unexpected support. Daniel's unwavering friendship, Linda's courageous truth-telling, Jessica's renewed trust. That evening, Tom sat in his motel room reviewing the settlement proposal Claire's attorney had reluctantly forwarded. Its terms heavily favored Tom, offering significantly more than he would have received had Claire filed first as she'd planned. The strategic patience he'd cultivated through decades of financial advising had served him well. Claire and Michael had mistaken his deliberate approach for weakness, his dignity for passivity. They had failed to recognize that wisdom accumulates with years, transforming seeming vulnerabilities into strengths. As the consequences they'd never anticipated continued to unfold, Tom realized the truth. His age hadn't been a disadvantage, but his greatest asset in navigating betrayal's treacherous waters. The morning sun cast diamond patterns across the lake's surface as Tom stood on the dock of his newly purchased cabin. 1 month had passed since the divorce was finalized, the terms heavily favoring Tom due to Claire's documented misconduct. The proceedings had concluded more quickly than expected, the judge unmoved by Claire's attorney's attempts to challenge the prenuptial agreement. Tom inhaled deeply, savoring the scent of pine and freshly cut wood from the bookshelves he'd built himself. Behind him, the small cabin represented not downsizing but right-sizing, a deliberate choice rather than a compromise. Its peaceful setting 40 minutes outside the city offered both solitude and a fresh start. The porch swing creaked softly in the morning breeze, its rhythm somehow comforting rather than intrusive. Cardboard boxes labeled in Tom's neat handwriting waited to be unpacked, each containing only what he had chosen to bring forward from his previous life. Inside, Jessica arranged family photos on the mantel, carefully selected images that celebrated their relationship without Claire's shadow. Their bond had emerged stronger through the crisis, weekend visits already becoming routine. "The university's official statement was released yesterday," Jessica said, joining Tom on the dock with coffee mugs in hand. "Peterson's termination is final. The investigation found he'd been using his position to influence investment decisions for personal gain for years. Tom nodded, accepting the steaming mug. And your mother? The school board voted not to renew her contract for next year. They're letting her finish the term to avoid disrupting the students, but she'll be gone by summer. Jessica hesitated. She's selling the house. Says it's too big for one person. Practical, Tom commented, his tone neutral. The home that had once meant everything now felt like a relic of another life. She asked about you, Jessica added carefully. Wanted to know if you were okay. Tom smiled slightly. I'm better than okay. The final divorce decree had awarded Tom not only his pension and investments, but a significant portion of their joint assets, the judge citing Claire's calculated deception and exploitation of her husband's health crisis. The settlement had provided more than enough to purchase this lakeside property and establish the next chapter of his life. Michael Peterson had faced harsher consequences: termination with cause, academic reputation destroyed, and potential legal action from the university regarding misused funds. The professional community that had once respected him now viewed him as a cautionary tale. Tom sat on the dock's edge, the final divorce decree in hand. He read it once more before carefully placing it in a folder, a chapter completed rather than a wound to be revisited. I have something to show you, he said to Jessica, leading her back to the cabin. On the small dining table lay incorporation papers for a new nonprofit organization. Second chapter financial guidance. What's this? Jessica asked, scanning the documents. A foundation to help people navigating divorce after long marriages, Tom explained. Financial advice, legal referrals, emotional support resources, particularly for older adults who feel vulnerable. Dad, that's wonderful, Jessica said, genuine admiration in her voice, using your experience to help others. It wasn't about revenge, Tom explained, emotion making his voice rougher. It was about closure, about consequences. He paused, wiping away a tear. And now it's about creating meaning from what happened. The foundation would be funded initially by the settlement from Claire, a poetic justice that transformed her betrayal into a resource for others facing similar situations. Tom's financial expertise would serve those who might otherwise be exploited during vulnerable transitions. As afternoon approached, Tom received a final letter from Claire, not through attorneys but handwritten and personal. Unlike her previous communications, this one acknowledged her wrongdoing and expressed regret, not for getting caught, but for the pain she'd caused. Tom read it calmly, noting the sincerity that had been absent in earlier attempts at reconciliation. When finished, he neither responded nor discarded it, simply filing it away, a sign of his complete emotional liberation. Claire's words, like Claire herself, no longer held power over his happiness. Jessica helped Tom move the last of the boxes inside before departing with promises to return the following weekend. The cabin settled into peaceful quiet as sunset approached, broken only by distant bird calls and gentle waves against the shore. Tom sat on his new porch swing, watching the sun sink toward the tree line. For the first time in decades, he answered to no one's schedule but his own. The heart that had been broken, both literally and figuratively, was healing, growing stronger with each passing day. His tears now represented not pain, but healing, not loss, but possibilities. Tom wiped one away as he watched the sunset colors reflect on the lake, recognizing the profound truth he'd discovered. At 65, he wasn't approaching an end, but embarking on a beginning. Standing on the dock at dawn the next morning, Tom felt taller somehow, unburdened by deception and performance. The cabin behind him contained only what he chose to bring forward from his past, physical embodiment of the emotional sorting he'd done. The nonprofit's first advisory board meeting was scheduled for the following week. The lake house renovations would begin on Monday. Jessica had invited him to her home for Sunday dinner to meet her new boyfriend. Life was unfolding in unexpected ways, proving that renewal remained possible at any age when wisdom guided actions. Tom had emerged from betrayal, not diminished, but enhanced, not victim, but victor. The quiet dignity he'd maintained throughout had become not just his shield, but his strength. As the sun broke fully above the tree line, casting his shadow long across the dock, Tom smiled. This wasn't the life he'd planned, but it was the life he was choosing, deliberately, joyfully, and completely on his own terms. Isn't it something, how life can change in the blink of an eye? One moment, you're living the life you built over decades, comfortable, predictable, secure. The next, you're standing in a doorway, watching 40 years crumble before your eyes. Many of you have been there, haven't you? That moment when trust shatters like fine china dropped on a kitchen floor. No warning, no preparation, just the sudden, breathtaking pain of betrayal. We all carry our scars from moments like these, the midnight tears soaked into pillows when no one's watching. The way your hand trembles holding that first cup of morning coffee, wondering how you'll make it through another day. The way familiar spaces, a bedroom, a garden bench, even a favorite chair, suddenly feel foreign, haunted by memories now called into question. Trust breaks. Hearts crack. The world spins on, indifferent to your pain. But here's what I've learned, watching Tom's journey. There's a dignity in how we face these moments that defines us more than the betrayal itself. It's in the quiet strength of refusing to let someone else's moral failure determine your worth. It's in the wisdom that comes from decades of living, the ability to step back, breathe deep, and respond with strategy rather than just emotion. Age brings vulnerability, yes, but it also brings perspective that younger folks just haven't earned yet. Those gray hairs and laugh lines, they're battle scars from lessons hard won. You know what else I've noticed? How often we discover who truly stands beside us only when the ground shifts beneath our feet. The daughter who eventually sees truth through her mother's lies. The friend who speaks honestly when it would be easier to stay silent. The strength we find in ourselves that we forgot was there, like muscles that haven't been used in years, but still remember how to carry weight when needed. There's something powerful about starting over at 65. Most folks see it as too late for new beginnings, but those of us with some miles on the odometer know better, don't we? We understand that sometimes the most beautiful journeys start after the map gets torn up. That porch swing might be creaking under a different view now, but the stars above are clearer without the fog of deception. Your story isn't finished when betrayal comes calling. Sometimes, it's just getting to the good part. The part where you discover the hero wasn't who you thought it was. It was you all along,